The original run of Doctor Who was a triumphant work of television, running for a staggering 695 episodes of varying lengths, whether it be 90 minutes or even 18 minutes, from the 23rd of November 1963 through to the 6th of December 1989. It was a terrific tenure that lasted 26 years, which had fantastic works of sci-fi television, from varying writers and styles, whether it be from mutant maggots made from condoms in The Green Death, to early leanings of historical tales in the 7th instalment epic of Marco Polo. Occupying the 60s, 70s and 80s of this millennium, this show for many years has thrilled generations. With the 60s, however, in my personal view, it has always been the best with regards to this show, because of the ideas, concepts and how far the BBC were willing to push this admittedly experimental show at the time. The aforementioned Marco Polo displayed aptly well the BBC's ambition with the show at the time, with 7 episodes of history and some of the best production values that the show has ever seen. The Second Doctor's The Enemy of the World greatly showed the experimental side of the show, with Patrick Troughton playing 2 different characters, both of which looking identical and took a much more political thriller type of sci-fi edge to the proceedings. This is a story that in my view is one of the absolute best stories to ever be made, and one of my all-time favourites. The next decade of the 70s saw the show being upgraded to colour and bore witness to many earthbound epics, such as the parallel dimensional Inferno and ritualistic occult goings-on with the Daemons, with the iconic Jon Pertwee. 7 more years of teeth and curls and adventures followed with the even more famous jelly baby chewing 4th Doctor, with many icons of the show with regards to the stories like The Ark in Space, Genesis of the Daleks, Pyramids of Mars, Terror of the Zygons and about 10 others. Whereas not as good as the 60s for me, this era also had many favourites of mine, whether it be the All-Star Season 7 to the comedic sci-fi delight of The City of Death. During these 2 decades, Doctor Who was a force of TV not to be reckoned with, being extremely popular, which even carried over into the early years of the 1980s, despite also having some of my absolute favourite stories, such as the closing 2 to the almighty Tom Baker. It is definitely the messiest with regards to what was happening to the show. The 5th Doctor's era was pretty solid for the most part. However, in Colin Baker's tenure, the show started to change, which would ultimately lead to its cancellation in 1989. Many people and critics complained to the ever so violent stories such as Attack of the Cybermen and the pretty political Vengeance on Varos, which led to an 18-month hiatus for the show, the firing of Colin Baker and extremely unstable ground for Sylvester McCoy. Whereas there was quite a few bad stories during this time, there were many good ones. The Caves of Androzani is well noted as being the greatest story of all time by some, as an example. And it was during 1983 that one of the most ambitious stories ever to be produced came to be. In between seasons 20 and 21 saw the 5 Doctors, one of a few stories that the BBC have tried to do in order to celebrate the show's birthday, on this occasion the 20th anniversary. From what I have seen, this in my view is easily the best story to be done under this small category, utilising the 1st, 2nd, 3rd and 5th Doctors as well as footage from Shada. We are given this huge 90-minute feature-length instalment of our beloved show Doctor Who, a massive story which brings together many ends of the ever-widening spectrum of fan service that the show is presenting us. There's a Dalek, there's a Yeti, there's K9 for very nearly no reason at all, and there's Cybermen, and there's a massive fuckwad of Gallifreyan continuity thrown at us as well. Yay. The story starts off with the 5th Doctor, Turlough and Tegan at the Eye of Orion, the most peaceful place in the universe, and over the course of the next 10 to 15 minutes, the current incarnation of the Doctor feels that parts of him are falling away. being taken. This particular section is interspliced with many different scenes of the first 4 Doctors being attempted of being taken by a sinister anomalous force, as well as Sara Jane and the Brigadier being taken as well, and they all arrive in the deadliest place on Gallifrey, the Death Zone, with all of them now trying to figure out what has happened and overcoming numerous obstacles such as a Cyberman, the Dalek and the Master. The plot itself on the whole is very good, I would have said. It's not the most out there or complicated, but for an anniversary story it is extremely well done, and it does add some nice layers of continuity to the world of Gallifrey as well, I would have said. All the characters in this story are well written for the most part, and are all very well performed. The first Doctor, as played by Richard Hurndall, does an extremely good job of bringing back to life Hartnell's Doctor, which was eventually outmatched by the unbelievable David Bradley. The way he moves, acts and looks is very first Doctor. He overall is a really good fill-in for the late great William Hartnell, but is kind of let down by an overly lively portrayal of the Doctor, and his voice as well is not really on the path of Hartnell's original. Good for what it was, and I will commend Richard's acting abilities as he is very manneristically the first Doctor, but at the same time not quite there overall. I know I'm not typically one for putting things into context, more on that in a future video, but with this being possibly one of the only times I'll talk about this portrayal, I might as well dive into him here. Take that last part how you will. The second and third Doctors are both very well done and realised by Patrick Troughton and John Pertwee. I can easily picture these 2 incarnations just being straight up plucked out of their respective eras. Patrick is reproducing his Doctor extremely well, with many jokey moments such as the meeting of the Brigadier. How did you know I was going to be here? Oh, I read it in the Times. But a journalist is still here. Oh, in tomorrow's Times. This scene in particular provides a big highlight to the story, as well as the following sequence of them reminiscing of their adventures together. It is such a lovely and heartwarming scene, seeing both going down a trip on memory lane. Here you can really see how well both of these characters work together and how much chemistry they have built up from their original encounter in the Web of Fear up to this point in their timelines. The third Doctor is back in action, very much the hero character that he was in his original tenure. Highlight of him for me is his line when the first 2 Doctors are trying to crack the mystery towards the finale. Extremely good portrayal of this incarnation overall. The fourth Doctor, well, he doesn't appear in this mostly, thanks to Tom Baker not wanting to come back for this story. Instead, we get reused footage from the cancelled and unfinished Sharda, and technical difficulties for the mysterious kidnapper. It is a pretty clever explanation as to why and how that the 4th Doctor could not appear to take participation in the events of the Game of Rassilon, but one that has to wonder what the story would have been if Tom Baker had actually come back for this story. Peter Davison's incarnation is very well portrayed and is pretty fantastic overall in this story. I really like all his encounters of his past versions and his overall attitude to what is happening, and his general contributions to the proceedings are fantastic. A highlight has to be whenever the first Doctor and Susan walk into the TARDIS thinking it's theirs, and the exchange of words that happens between him, Tegan and Turlough. The companions in this story are all very well acted by their respective actors, I would have said. Carol Lanford slips back into her role as Susan Foreman very well, and seems to be really comfortable working with Hurndall, and both get on very well together, which I can tell from an acting point of view. Both seemed really enthusiastic about working with each other on this project and delivered their characters extremely well in execution, for the most part, with regards to Hurndall. Highlight for me with these characters is their reunion and encountering the Dalek on what they think to be Skaro at first. Really good scene overall, and is a very good introduction for the pairing within this story. Sara Jane is also very well done by Elizabeth, who, again, feels like they were lifted right out of their tenure and is very like her original TV run counterpart. The scene where she reunites with the Third Doctor and is coming to terms with seeing this version of the Doctor after she's seen him regenerate and play with spiders is fantastic. However, I do think that the scene where she gets warned by K9 and gets captured is a little unnecessary, not only considering the fact that Susan was never given one of these scenes in the story. Maybe she was in the extended version, which I've probably seen ages ago, but for the transmitted version she doesn't. But also because of the fact that I think that her stumbling through the death zone and being found by the Third Doctor would have been a much better introduction to her for the story. Tegan and Turlough are also very well done by Janet Fielding and Mark Strickson, who do excellent performances throughout, and have a similar thing to the Fifth Doctor in that I think their interactions with the other companions, doctors, and coming to terms with what is happening are very good overall. Throughout the story we get a smattering of numerous past villains. However, the most prolific for the 90 minutes of this story is the Master and the Cybermen. Anthony Ainley does a brilliant performance as the Master, and the scene between him and the other Time Lords in his introduction to the story are brilliant. I also really like all of his interactions between the other characters, as well as, in particular, the Cybermen. The Cybermen in this are good as well. Maybe not at their absolute best, as overall they are fan wank for the most part in my opinion. Here they are threatening, but overall I personally feel they are just lumbering robots and don't really do much. At some points I do feel like that they are there for the sake of being there and just for more continuity references for the sake of it, but overall they aren't horrible by a long stretch, but are kind of in the background in a fairly metaphorical sense. And no, I won't argue that this is a Cyberman story, because it's not really in my view. It's a Gallifreyan story. Another interesting thing with regards to the characters is the Rastan warrior robot, I would have said. I personally find it to be a very good concept as essentially a protector of the tomb of Rassilon, and its scene with the Cybermen is absolutely brilliant. Overall, the Five Doctors will be a story that I will love for many years to come. I will see and even side with the argument that it isn't the most intelligent story, as there is quite a few moments where I'm questioning the logic of some things and even characters, but I will still defend this story for being great. This in my view is the definition of what a story should be in order to celebrate the show. Heaps of fun, easy to follow, and is just great entertainment. Not to mention the absolutely fantastic production values, as well as the absolutely amazing music score that the story has. I would highly recommend the Five Doctors overall, and it is just a fantastic entertaining slice of Doctor Who that is the definition of how to celebrate the show.